Pac Man, as it was originally called, was released in Japan in July 1980. It was released internationally in October and was rather wisely renamed as Pac Man. At this point, the arcades were dominated by space shooters such as Galaxian and Space Invaders. Pac Man was designed as a non-violent game with cute, brightly coloured graphics to attract more female players into the arcades. For the benefit of the hermits out there, and those too young to know better, you control the eponymous Pac Man, a yellow circle with a mouth. Your goal is to gobble up all the dots in an enclosed maze. You are chased by 4 ghosts named Blinky, Pinky, Inky, and Clyde, who apparently have different behaviours. There are warp tunnels on each side of the maze. If you enter the tunnel on the right of the maze, you appear on the left, and vice versa. Ghosts can use the tunnel, but it slows them down. Twice during each maze, you can gain bonus points by eating a piece of fruit that appears under the ghost's base in the centre of the maze. Towards the corners are 4 large flashing dots called power pellets. Eating these causes the ghosts to turn blue and turn tail. When they are blue, they can be eaten for bonus points. After a few seconds, they start flashing before turning back to their normal colours. When the ghosts are eaten, all that is left are their eyes, which return to their base where they regenerate. As the game progresses, the ghosts become faster and don't stay blue for as long. Every couple of levels, there is an intermission where a short cutscene plays out. I won't pretend to be a massive fan of Pac Man and have never worked out the individual traits of the ghosts. I just take it as it is. A fun diversion to play now and again. Pac Man was a huge success, winning many awards, and spawned TV shows, hit records, many sequels, and lots of Pac Man branded merchandise. It eventually went on to become the highest grossing arcade game of all time. In the early 80s, HAL Laboratories owned the rights to the home computer versions of Pac Man in Japan. It produced this for the VIC-20, which was published by Commodore in 1981. And an excellent conversion of Pac Man it is too. Okay, there is some colour clash, the ghosts flicker, and the cutscenes are missing, but apart from that, there is nothing to complain about. The sound effects are excellent, as are the jingles. Apart from minor issues, it is very, very good. Even the maze layout is almost the same. Commodore chanced their arm by repackaging the game as Jelly Monsters, with some hideous cover art, before releasing the game in Europe and North America. Unfortunately for Commodore, Europe and North America was Atari territory, and they were forced to pull it from the shelves after Atari filed a lawsuit. Oh dear. 1982 saw the release of this travesty on the Atari VCS. Where to begin? Sound is horrible and is nothing like the arcade version. The maze is an awful concoction of blue and brown, and the layout bears no resemblance to the original. The warp tunnels are now in the top and bottom of the maze, rather than the sides, and I'm not convinced the ghosts can go through them. The dots are now dashes. Where the fruit should appear is a square thing. You don't seem to get any bonus score for eating ghosts. Speaking of ghosts, They are drawn every fourth frame and flicker so hellishly it is difficult to tell which ghost is which, or when they are about to change colour. Pac Man himself only faces left or right, even when moving up and down. And the controls just feel off. Were there any redeeming features? No, there were not. Atari, and the not-so-discerning games-buying public, didn't seem to care, as it sold over 8 million cartridges. This made it not only the best-selling Atari VCS game, but also the best-selling game ever, until Super Mario Bros. Knocked it off its perch. This game, along with E.T., were partly held to blame for the US video game crash of 1983, as it showed you could churn out dross, and people would still buy it. Until they didn't. This is more like it. The Atari 5200 version was released in the same year and is really rather excellent. Okay, the display is slightly stretched due to the screen orientation, but everything else, the music, maze layout, sound and fruit, are all present and correct. It also has the intermission screens. I can imagine the only real downer would be trying to play it with the standard non-centering controllers. I should say, there is a bit of a glitch on this video where it doesn't look like Pac Man's mouth is moving, when in actuality, it is. The PC version, out in 1983, was bound to suffer in terms of graphics. Designed more for Lotus 1-2-3 and WordPerfect rather than Defender and Pac Man, the graphics suffer with only 4 colours. It is well drawn, and the maze resembles the arcade version, but the ghosts flicker a bit. Sound is okay. There are audible clicks as if the sound was digitised from a recording. I don't know if this is the case, or if it would be heard through the PC speakers. Commodore 64 version, also from 1983, I was expecting something as good as, if not better than the Atari 5200 version. Well, it looks almost identical. It has the sound, but the gameplay, what were they thinking? The ghosts just seem to roam around randomly without making any effort to chase or catch you. There may be times when they seem to latch onto you, but can just as easily wander off to another part of the maze. This makes getting bonus points from eating a few ghosts in a row almost impossible. The only real challenge comes when the game becomes faster and you run into a ghost by mistake. Additionally, I played a few levels and I don't think this game contains the intermissions. Correct me if I'm wrong. In 1981, Commodore had been blocked from releasing the Japanese market VIC-20 version of Pac Man in the West. Looking at the Atari soft version, you can see why. In the intervening 2 years, Atari managed to come up with an inferior game. Instead of taking just a couple of rows off the maze like Jelly Monsters, Atari made the maze about half the size of the coin-op. This basically gives you only one route to go when starting a level. Go left, and you get caught by the red ghost. Go right, and the green ghost catches you, which only leaves down. Couple this with flickering graphics when the sprites overlap, not great sound and dodgy collision detection, it all makes for a pretty lame and boring game. I also just noticed the ghosts regenerate straight away when they are eaten, rather than their eyes going back to the center base first. The Intellivision version of Pac Man was released in 1983. Again, the maze has been emasculated, although the game plays fairly well if a bit slow. It also contains the intermissions. There's not really much more to say about this, other than it is a competent conversion. Competent conversion are not words I would use to describe the Spectrum version from 1984. To avoid color clash, the programmer has built the graphics around the Spectrum's 8x8 pixel text blocks, which results in small sprites and jerky animations. Some of the maze walls were also thicker, although the layout is the same as the coin-op, albeit stretched like the other versions here. Sound is not very authentic either. The Spectrum version is also easier than the others, with the ghosts being slower compared to Pac Man. They also stay edible for longer. To its credit, it does contain the intermissions, but the animations there are also jerky. As an aside, a talented fellow called Simon Owen managed to get a mostly unmodified Pac Man ROM running on a 128K Spectrum. It goes to show what quality of games we could have been playing back in the day if the professional programmers of the time had put more effort into what they were getting paid to do. Also in 1984 came the MSX version of Pac Man, released by Namco themselves on their Namcot label. You'd expect it to be good, and it is good. Very good. The graphics are smooth and sound is fine. It has the speed of the coin-op, which a lot of the conversions lack. Namco has put the score, extra lives and fruit graphics to one side of the screen, and made the aspect ratio of the maze more like the arcade machine. A minor quibble would be the limited color palette, but that is very minor indeed. Namco also released Pac Man for the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1984. This is the last of what I would call the contemporary conversions of Pac Man, even though it came out 4 years after the original arcade machine. As expected, it is very similar to the MSX version, but has a couple more colours on screen. I may be imagining it, but the behaviour of the ghosts didn't seem quite right, occasionally going off in an unexpected direction when they are right on my tail. Not quite as bad as the Commodore 64 game, but still noticeable. That said, it is still a top conversion. The final 2 versions I am going to look at are from the beginning of the 90s for handheld consoles. The Nintendo Game Boy conversion was released in 1990. Probably due to the screen size, it has a scrolling maze. I'm not a fan of this, as you can't see where all the ghosts are, and going through the tunnel can be a leap of faith. Also, being monochrome, there is no differentiating the ghosts. I have no complaints about the sound, however. Finally, from 1991, we have Pac Man for the Sega Game Gear. Although it scrolls slightly vertically, in terms of graphics, sounds and gameplay, it is probably the most accurate conversion here. The scrolling doesn't really detract from the game, as you can still see 2/3 of the screen at any one time. Of course, there were other conversions of Pac Man, but I think I have covered the main ones. Obviously, there is the best-selling original, one that saw Atari and Commodore in court, and one that helped bring down an industry. Until next time, cheerio.